Alright, so today I'm going to show you guys how to tune a drum. This applies to pretty much all the drums on a drum set, toms, snares, bass, anything. So, first we got to start. This is the snare drum we're going to start on today. This is the only one I'm going to do, but like I said, it applies to all of them. So first thing, you have to have a head. This is an older head. I'm just going to retune it, but you know, this works just as well when you buy a new head and start from scratch. So this is the metal rim here. This is important for later on. I'll show you guys. And this is the rim of the drum. So let's get started. First thing you need to do is obviously stick the rim on. All these lugs, that's what they're called. Make sure they're all aligned over where they're supposed to be, like so. Now some people think that when you tune a drum, you have to tune it to specific notes, like normal instruments do, like A flat or B or whatever, but that's not how, probably more developed musicians do that, but personally I don't really care what note it sounds like, as long as it sounds the way I want it to, the way I want a drum set to sound. So first you gotta start by just doing it finger tight. This is called a drum key. This is obviously one of the more important tools for tuning a drum set. This is basically a drum tuner. So first start out by making it finger tight. Hands are a little sweaty. Alright. Now, one of the more important parts of tuning a drum set is that you never want to go just over to the next one, because you'll warp that metal. Remember the metal part I showed you on the rim, or on the head? You can warp that. What that means is it's flat, and if you tighten it one by one, it's going to be tight here, but here it's still loose, so you're going to bend the metal, and that's going to ruin the drum head. So, right now obviously it sounds like really papery because it's not tight. So let's at least work it up to something where it sounds like a drum set. See, starting to straighten out a little bit already. And then just go across. That's what you want to do. Start on one, and you go across to the one that's right across from it. That's the way it works, because it distributes the tension across the entire head, therefore it won't break the head. There you go. And then from here, you move over to the next one, and then from here, you're going to move over here. So the pattern should be like that, and then across again, and that'll cover all of them. So that's the way you're supposed to do it, so you don't break the head. Now it might feel like sometimes that when you're tightening it, like this one felt really loose, like you could have done with a finger again, but that's because these are already tightened. So don't worry about it. This is just the beginning part of it. Right now we just want it to sound like a drum and not like a piece of paper. There's different kinds of keys. This one's just a standard one, but there's some that have like really long handle parts but those are mostly for like marching instruments, marching drums. The reason they're longer handles is because marching drums usually are tuned a lot higher, meaning these things are a lot tighter, and you need a really good leverage to be able to get it up there. So, but for a drum set, this works just as well. See, the head's starting to straighten out a little bit. Not quite there yet, but it's almost there. We only got 2 lugs left, so hopefully that'll make it nice and straight. the main ideas is that you don't want to over tighten it from the start, because if you do that, you might rip the head, as in the plastic will just snap and you'll have a big old gash, and that means you have to buy a new one. So be nice to it, be gentle. This is a drum set snare head, so it's not as tough. What I think is pretty interesting is that some marching snares, most marching snares, their heads actually have material that they use for Kevlar. And if you guys don't know what that is, that's so it's still a little papery. So I mean, it might be hard to hear with the camera, but it sounds papery. And if you can see my finger, the head still gives a little bit. So still need to tighten it a little bit more. So start from where you remember which one you started with, because that's the one you always want to start with. Maybe like 3 turns on each one. But yeah, like I said before, the marching snares have Kevlar in it, and the material that they use for Kevlar is pretty crazy. But that's because they're tuned so high that you want them to be really strong, because if there wasn't that stuff in it, it would snap from how high they tune those snares. But if you think about it, that's how snares are supposed to sound, marching snares at least. You watch a drum corps show. There we go. See, now it's starting to tighten up a little bit. Okay. So now we're going to start doing fine tuning. So, personally, you guys can tune it however you want. Like I said before, you don't have to tune it to an A or a B flat or whatever. You tune it to more like the way you want it to sound. The way, like toms, I like them to sound nice and deep. So usually that means you have to tune it low. So because that's how it is. The higher the tension, the higher it's going to sound. The brighter it's going to sound. So for snare, I usually like it a metallic sound, but that usually means that I have to have a metallic shell. This is a wooden shell, so it's never going to sound metallic. So in substitute, if I have a wooden head for a snare or a wooden shell, I usually like to make it sound kind of bright. So that means tune it high, relatively higher. So right now it's alright. It's like in the middle. So it's not super high, it's not super low. You've got to be really careful again, especially on these last steps, because you don't want to over-tune it and snap the head. You're going to start feeling a lot more resistance in the lugs. So, if you're a beginner, it's normal, you'll be nervous and you want to snap your head. But, as you move on, you'll get to know you'll start to know your own heads, and you'll know what to do, how far you can push them. And for you beginners out there, don't be afraid to break a head, Be prepared to buy a new one just in case. But, don't be all you're trying to sound better. So I guess let's stick with this for now, for time's sake.